Okay, we're live.
Live.
Okay, cool.
Good?
Yep. We're good to go.
Yeah. All right, folks, tuning in from Instagram Live and Facebook Live. I'm sorry we're getting started a little bit late here, but we're really excited today. We're here with Lucky. We are at Lucky's Muay Thai. This is our 5th installment of our community trainer / coach series. I'm really excited about being here today because this gym is really unlike any other gym in the area. It's unlike any other place we've been. Really cool vibes here. Lucky has a very specific niche that he caters to at his gym. And so we're gonna learn a little bit more about this man, a little bit more about the gym. And also it's very close to my heart because it's the first martial arts gym that we've been at. And as you guys know who follow us, I love martial arts. So Lucky, let's start with, I know we're gonna get into all the stuff about you starting the gym and whatnot, okay, but I know that you had a background playing basketball, you've done some acting, so give me a little bit of background leading up to when you found martial arts.
Tell us the whole story.
When I found martial arts, okay, so when I was young in Chicago, I found martial arts at a young age. So
shout out Chicago.
Chicago, yeah. I found martial arts at a young age, watching Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan movies, as a lot of people did back then. I was playing Little League Baseball, and I went to the park, and on the way in, I passed the clubhouse, and there was a guy there that was probably like maybe 16 at the time, and he was doing nunchucks, like in the middle of the room as I walked by. So I walked by and had to do a double take and come back. And I was like, I didn't know that we could do that.
Yeah.
So went home and talked to my mom, and it turned out that my baseball coach was the actual instructor there. So he took me in, and that's sort of where it all started. Doing Taekwondo when I think I started when I was like 7. I did that till I was like 12 or so 12 or 13.
Oh wow, okay.
And that was like the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did Taekwondo when you were young,
Oh my god.
and then did you follow up with that through like middle school?
All right, so we moved to Texas, and it was a very odd move from the south side of Chicago to Texas. So I didn't know any places that I could try to do martial arts. So what I would do over the years was, like, if anybody told me they did martial arts, I would be like, well, what kind of martial arts? Then can you show me things? So I kind of did that for a long time until I moved to Miami. And then once I got here, I was playing basketball all the time. I didn't know what I was gonna do, so I just kept playing basketball. I was thinking about trying to do, I don't even know. I had no idea. I was acting before that. And my girlfriend had been inviting me to go train kickboxing at the gym, and one of the people that we worked with was teaching. And I went in, and when I kicked the bag that first day, I knew like I was like, that's it. Oh, I'm supposed to be doing this.
Yeah.
Like, and so all my attention and efforts turned towards that.
And when was this? Like how old were you?
20 years ago. I'm about to be 48, so.
Lucky's
You
a
don't look even
vampire.
close to 40.
It's
You don't
crazy, but
It's
you
all
don't
good.
look close to
Yeah, it's all
40.
good. So this was like you were in your 20s?
Yeah, I mean late, right?
Yeah.
So.
Late 20s when you came back to martial arts. And when did you move to South Florida?
Oh, shoot, in like 95, right around there.
Okay. So you came here, you found martial arts. You as soon as you got back into it, you were like, this is what I gotta do. So then take us on your path kind of between there, some of the transition stuff you did, because a lot of people know you in South Florida for martial arts, because I talk to people all the time, and they know who you
Yeah.
are.
I know a lot of
So
people.
you've been around the
Yeah.
South Florida martial arts community.
Well,
so talk to us about some of your experience.
Okay, so I trained basically for about 5 years. 3 of those years probably like I trained basically by myself with friends or whoever I could meet up with. But by the time I finished that, like 5 years of just putting all my effort, I didn't know where it was going. I knew that I wanted to teach, or I wanted to have a gym or something to that effect. And the person whose gym it was asked me if I wanted to work the front desk, and I was like, well, I already have a full-time job. I was bartending at the Clevelander, which is another reason why people knew me, because I worked at the Clevelander for like 15 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've been kind of around the scene, but she was like, you could teach now. You've been training for like 5 years. Like, you could teach a class. So she gave me a job teaching classes at South Florida Boxing. They had 4 locations at the time, so I taught here at 163rd. And it's just really a personal thing to me, martial arts. So I'm like teaching these classes and listening to people, when are you fighting? When are you gonna fight? Are you, all this thing, and man, I took that really to heart. And so eventually I just started waking up in the middle of the night and then getting online back when it was, you know, and yeah, man, dial-up was rough. And I found somebody that actually decided to give me a chance at, you know, as an amateur. Master Mirdad, who just passed away, so rest in peace, Master Mirdad. But yeah, man, and that's sort of where it started. And then once I had like my first fight, I was like, all right, I maybe want to do this a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I started bringing people with me. So I was teaching at the time, so I had a fight, and then I was like, oh, this person wants to fight? Hey man, let me train you, you can come with me. And then there were points where I was like, have 2 fighters or 3 fighters, and I'm putting them on one after the other, and then I have to go to the back and like warm up to fight. So yeah, it was a lot.
So you were coaching and competing.
At the same night on the same card. Yeah.
Wow. And
Can you walk us through the first fight?
Oh yeah, I would love to.
Like, just tell us about
Okay,
that.
let's go back to that story
Yeah,
really
yeah.
quick. So I call Master Mirdad and he says, oh, I'd love to have you on the show, right? So come on up. So I call my buddy and I say, hey man, I got a fight. Will you come up with me to Tampa and give me water in my corner? Which I had no idea anything about what that meant.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I'm gonna go to the corner, he's gonna pour water in my mouth, and I'm gonna go back out and
He's gonna pump me up, and then we're gonna go back in.
yeah, it was really bizarre. But I got there, I did the weigh-in, paperwork, all that stuff. They check your blood pressure, that whole thing. Was the last time the bell's been rung? I don't know, it hasn't. Back then the sparring was a little bit different. Yeah, I don't remember that. So they didn't set me up. They put me in a fight with a guy named BJ Grayson. BJ was turning pro after this fight, and it was my first fight. So it was kind of a weird matchup situation. But I remembered some specific things. A buddy of mine told me, like, yo, you gotta just relax, right? Don't just relax. Everything that happens, just relax. You know, I told myself that through the entire fight. I mean, that's what carried me, to be honest.
Yeah.
That and the fact that one of my close friends who was a world champion, in my first real sparring,
Yeah.
I fought a guy that was already a pro, sparred a guy that was already a pro. So maybe he was taking it easy on me, I don't know. But
Yeah.
I went out the first round and I was like lighting him up, you know, I felt good. I was like, oh, this is great. The second round starts and we're in a cage because the Golden Gloves boxer guys were in the ring, so we were using the cage. So I go in the second round, I start the first minute, I feel like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And then it just all goes south. My body doesn't work at all. I end up on the cage door, you know, by the end of it, and he's just kind of tagging me up and the bell rings. I go to walk out and she looks at me and goes, where are you going? And I was like, oh, I'm done getting some water, I'm done. She's like, no, you're not done. Get back in there. And she went in, closed the door, and she locked it. And I spent an entire round just basically getting beat up against the cage. But because of those two things, like learning how to relax and then being in that situation where, you know, these punches and kicks are coming at me, I've seen this already. I didn't feel so uncomfortable in my first fight. Like, I didn't feel really uncomfortable. And then I won. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. So
Yeah.
And so how many, did you just compete in boxing and Muay Thai? Or?
Just in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, just
and
Muay Thai.
Taekwondo when I was young, but Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, yeah.
Okay. So how many?
Shout out to Jiu-Jitsu for y'all don't know.
Oh, we're gonna get.
I get down.
We're gonna get
down.
So how many Muay Thai fights did you
I
have?
think like 20 overall, like 19 or 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the amateur stuff is.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Muay Thai, like they tend to have a lot of fights, right? Like relative to MMA.
Yeah, I mean it's different where you live, right? In Thailand they'll fight, 100, 200 fight. You know, it's different in this. But they also do it to feed their families. There's a big money component. You don't make as much money. You fight really often, every few days, maybe every week, sometimes twice a week.
Yeah.
So it's different. Like the laws are different, everything. So in the U.S., you can fight once, and they can tell you have a 6-month suspension for whatever. You know? But you're not going to get that in a lot of places. You know, so you're going to be fighting often, no matter what, right?
Yeah. So let me before we get into all the other stuff, let me just stick to the Muay Thai. So what about Muay Thai do you really like and think is unique? Because there's a lot of different martial arts out there. Muay Thai is one that I think has gained a lot of steam as the UFC's gotten more popular. People are picking up on like Muay Thai and these other striking arts and stuff like that. But what do you really like about Muay Thai that made you sort of, well, Lucky's Muay Thai? It's in your name, so.
Oh my goodness. I think, first of all, it's super exciting, right? It has historical value. And, you know, beyond that, like, I kind of tell people this a lot. There's a lot of people I've met along the way. And I think probably people feel this way about their own martial arts or things they're in. It's like it's like you almost don't go searching for Muay Thai, like it almost comes searching for you. I know that sounds probably kind of strange, but like you if you walk away from it and it was something that like touched your heart, like you go back, like you can't not go back. It's something there's a spiritual component to it. And I think to me that's the one thing. It's helped me balance. It's actually given me just about everything that I've gotten in the recent years because I've spent all this time working on my craft and paying attention to it. And I love it, man. It's super exciting. There's so much to learn that you're constantly learning. It's never ending, it's just never ending. And I need that because I have this weird sort of thing that's happening up here, so.
Yeah. And since our audience is a variety of patients and people who follow us and things like that, just tell people what Muay Thai is, like in a quick, because not everybody's watching necessarily knows exactly. And I know some people like maybe don't know the difference between that and like kickboxing.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Same.
All right, so this is kind of weird because there's like there's this sort of, I would call it a sibling rivalry. I know kickboxing people and Muay Thai people don't like to, mix their sports. They are completely different. They are judged differently. But if I was to tell a layman, like in layman's terms, what it is, if they knew what kickboxing was, I would say that it is kickboxing that you also use your elbows, your knees. You use a standing grappling or what we call clinching, but people would consider maybe wrestling, almost Greco-Roman style, with throws and trips and that kind of thing. So like there's a lot of components involved. In Muay Thai, kickboxing, they don't allow elbows. They will allow some knees, but they don't allow a clinch. So there are some major differences, and major differences in scoring as well. In Muay Thai, you're scoring more for knees and kicks than you are for punches. So they're looking for different things. So they're two completely different sports, but they're sort of cousins.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's right. And
See, that makes sense to me.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
Good.
that makes
I'm
sense.
so glad. I'm like, this is one of those things I don't want to mess up.
No, it's perfect.
That's what I've been doing when I come here.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
he just
yeah,
described
yeah.
that, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to Muay Thai. Is that
This is what he does at
wrestling,
home, just kind of.
karate, so you learn a little bit about what I
Got
do in
it.
my free time.
Okay.
Yeah, and the clinch thing, that's a big game changer that you can do clinches and sweeps relative to just like regular
Yeah,
striking.
man. Yeah, it's a huge deal because, and it's also one of those things that if you don't know how to do it, it's similar. I can also equate this to people that know things about, say, judo and jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. Clinching is kind of the same thing. If you don't know how to do it, you're going to be in trouble. Number one. And in judo and jiu-jitsu, in clinching, it's a leverage thing. So if you're a big guy but you don't know how to use your body or understand leverage, I can still be a smaller guy and throw you around, right? And cause you a lot of problems that you didn't think were going to be a problem.
Which
So
is very cool for
it
a
is super
smaller
cool.
person.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And Muay Thai, like, is, I mean, was it founded in Thailand? I don't know.
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah.
I didn't want to like say it was. I assume it was. But you know, the population out
It's
there.
actually the national sport of Thailand.
Okay.
Oh
that's
my
awesome.
gosh, that's
Her
cool.
sister lives in Thailand.
Yeah, my sister currently
Oh,
lives in
okay.
that.
With
Alright.
her husband.
Yeah.
Has she been to see any fights?
Nope.
She has.
She has not.
Oh,
She has not been to like.
She should go see some.
She's vacationing right now on like some island off.
Oh, she should go see some fights.
That's what I'm saying. Before she moves
But
back.
then it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful, you know, just the whole process of the fights, and then just the culture, like the gambling that goes on. It's like all of that is part of the culture. I mean, obviously, you don't really want to see the kids fight, but that's even really pretty fascinating, to be honest. Like, I don't, condone kids fighting, but these are, well-trained children that look like, have bodies like grown men, which is really bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, there's some beautiful, great things about Muay Thai, and then there's also obviously some dark components to it. They still have women going below the ropes to get into the ring as opposed to over the ropes like the men do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's still like some things that are behind the times as far as, rights and things like that. And because there are a lot of poor people sort of working through Muay Thai to feed their families, then you also have gyms that are paid from the money, right? And because the gyms are paid from that money from winning the fights, sometimes you'll see abuse from trainers and gym owners to younger fighters that didn't win their fights. So there is a darker component to it that, I mean, listen, it's definitely overshadowed by the beautiful people of Thailand and, you know, the beauty of the sport, but there's definitely some stuff that, you know, people are trying to push to change. You know, they just decided, I think, that they're going to try to make all women wear elbow pads because their women should be, you know, have beautiful faces and this whole thing. But like, it's just, there are things that need to change. But that's, you know, that's the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
Trying to make
And
things
it's
better.
evolving.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure you have other suggestions, but I know the Fight World. Have you seen that show? It's on Netflix.
With
It's like,
yes,
but
yeah.
it kind of is a cool behind the scenes look at some of these sports.
Yeah, he went to Crew Dams. I trained at Crew Dam.
Yeah.
That's what I trained with when I was in Thailand.
Oh
Is
wow.
that what we were watching?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's a good recommendation if you want to learn a little bit more about that.
Oh, for
It
sure,
kind of
yeah.
follows around like the kids who are training, and you see like the conditions they're living in, and for them like Muay Thai is sort of how they get out.
How
So
they get out, yeah.
it's very real
Yeah.
out there. You know, it's not just a hobby for a lot of
No,
people.
and that's, I think, when I teach, and you know this, like sometimes I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say that I'm strict, but I'm really hard about some things because I also want people to realize that it's, you know, it's sort of a blessing to be able to just to train in the, you know, it's nice in here, you get a nice floor. Like a lot of these people are training in, you know, dirt, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're working their butts off, and like we come in, we got all the juices and the waters and
Yeah,
the
you got the
supplements and
fans.
the fans and all the, you know, and it's like, all right, man, so don't disrespect though that these people over there really doing this for their livelihood,
Right.
and you get to do it for fun. So to kind of don't take it seriously, but show respect to it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like paying homage to like the people across
Yeah,
the
man.
ocean. and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So Muay Thai is very unique. It's very cool. Check it out. So let's talk a little bit more about this gym in particular, because like I said earlier, you know, I've seen this personally over like the last 6 or 7 years maybe, that like martial arts getting ingrained into the fitness world has become pretty cool.
Mhm.
You know, you've seen like the UFC gym now, most gyms have some sort of cardio boxing
Right,
component. Even jiu-jitsu's probably gotten bigger as a result of all this. But your gym is very unique. It has like just a very traditional feel. Like it's just like you come in here and it is hot. There are fans, but it's hot. We work hard, you know, and there's like a certain aura about the way that this gym is run, and I don't think that's by accident. So,
Dude, what is going on here? Oh, you know I'm an emotional person. Right? You feel like there's like a level of compliments you can give before like they just start
Yeah,
flooding.
yeah.
So, whew, goodness.
Right
Okay.
here, you and me.
talk to us about that.
Okay. So, God, this might get a little deep.
No, tell us.
All right. So first of all, I like a family atmosphere, right? And it doesn't mean that there's kids here and all that stuff. Occasionally, my daughter's here, who's, you know, a kid, like, you know, she's about to be 6. She's a kid.
Yeah.
But what I need, you know, people to do when they come here is to take part, right? Everybody has to help everybody else. Otherwise, we can't grow, right? So if I have, you know, 10 people that have been here and then we have a new person and they never work with that person and help that person get better, then we are all like the weakest link, right? We're no better than the weakest link. So we always got to help each other, build each other up. And then I also, you know, at the end of the class, I always line everybody up. I tell everybody I love them. I tell everybody that it's so silly. It's silly. It's not silly, but I just know that other people don't do and say the things that I say. So it's kind of strange to say it out loud, but I tell everybody I love them. I tell them that if they ever need anybody to talk to, if they needed to reach out, right? I also try to make sure that if somebody's working in different industries, that I connect them, right? This person does that, that person does this. Hey, you should talk to this person. Oh, you're a air traffic controller, and you're a pilot. Oh, you guys should meet. Like, that's part of that whole family community thing. So it's really important to me. Like, I think I suffer from depression, anxiety, and all that kind of thing, and I want to make sure that I have a place that people can come that they feel comfortable just being in. I have friends that, you know, before the pandemic started, obviously, but I have people that would just show up and hang out at the gym. You know, they didn't have to come train. They just come bring their computer or whatever, hang out in the office, whatever it is. And like, to me, that's way more important than anything else. Like, we have belts hung up, we have people winning stuff, all that stuff is so cool. It's cool. That's super cool. You come in here, you bust your ass, you do something, you know, you get something for it. That's great. But also, like, you know, just the expression of my heart and their hearts. You know, like, I love seeing that, man. I love seeing people help each other out and, you know, reach out to each other and take care of each other. And to me, that's way more important than anything else. So.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
No, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting too, because maybe like if you were just walking by this gym and you saw us like mid-workout, it would potentially look intimidating. You know, we're punching, we're hitting each other, we're hitting bags, we're sprinting, we're doing this. But as soon as you walk in here and you kind of feel the vibe, and it's just a bunch of cool people working hard. It's a very, very it's probably more of a welcoming environment than like any regular gym.
I hope so.
Because everybody knows each other. It's a pretty intimate setting. I know you know everybody. It's not like you don't know people's names.
And I also try to make sure that, hey, when somebody walks in, hey, this is so-and-so, they're joining us, make sure you say hello, make them feel welcome. Like, you know, it's all of us, right? It's all of us, so.
Yeah. Especially when you're trying something new. Like, you want to feel like included, you want to feel safe in that environment. Yeah.
And even if you've done it before and you're just going into a new place, is always, you know, what are these guys about? I saw them on Google or whatever. Let me go. I want to check them out. You know, I want you to feel like
that was a year ago,
right? I want you to feel welcome here for 100%. Don't, you know? And also, I think, you know, the vibe is important, because I also want people that feel like they have to use their ego to understand that that's not welcome. Right? There is a level when we're in a fighting gym. You're gonna see some stuff happen. You'll get, you know, but I have a no a-holes policy. So, you know, people that come in that might be aggressive or this and that, they don't last that long. They leave, or they'll be asked to leave. So, you know, they can't. There's plenty of gyms where they can walk in and be like, you know, like, it's plenty of places to do that. But I don't necessarily need that.
I think what I've learned from listening to Will talk about martial arts all the time, watching martial arts all the time,
every Saturday
night, all that stuff, is the humbling aspect of when you begin martial arts. You're just humbled by the entire experience, just knowing that your ego is going to be, you know, gone by the time you're done with class, because you know that you're not the best guy there. You're not the best, you know.
I often say this building is humbling, which is not necessarily this building, but any of the warehouse buildings that we've been in, because it doesn't matter about the fan. If you've never experienced this environment, and you come jumping rope, you jump rope for 5 minutes in here, you're gonna be like, oh, I'm not, and then we're going straight into the work with the bag and the pads or whatever. And it's a lot.
It forces you to get uncomfortable, and I think that's what allows people to kind of drop that like barrier and just kind of get in there and start working.
It's necessary for this. You can't learn if I'm not listening to, you know. All right.
And you just have to be a sponge to get better martial arts. That's about it.
So thank you, Lucky. I've been watching MMA, watching all this stuff.
And you got it all down now. I was gonna say, you got it all down.
I know a lot of stuff.
I'm sure.
I have debates with myself, and she just listens.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna tackle them.
They're a good match. They're a good match, I guess. So we learned a little bit about the gym. We learned a little bit about your approach. Tell us about the people that kind of led the way. Tell us about your mentors, the people that have influenced you along the way. Some of the important people that got you here.
All right. Important people that got me here. All right. So, as I mentioned this at all, I was self-taught. So, there are people along the way that definitely I looked up to. There's probably a lot of them, because a lot of them I watched from a distance, right? Except for like my mom. So, mom gets shout out. My first really good friend that helped me out, Sarah Sedanis. She's a multi-time world champion, and she was like one of the first ones I met that was like, oh yeah, you do this, and, let me show you. I met her to train for like getting ready for that first fight, and she's like, what do you want to work on? I was like, I don't know, whatever you say. And she's like, all right, well let's get our stuff on, let's spar around a little bit, and let's see what we need to work on. So we got in the ring, the bell rang, and she kicked me in the mouth.
Oh.
I never saw it, mouth bleeding. I was like, well, I guess defense is probably the first thing. So she's like one of the big influences because she really like pushed me after my first fight. She was like, you should have 10 more fights at least, right? And I was like, I guess. Yeah. But you know, a lot of people that I look at were like fighters at the time that were big. BJ Penn, Anderson Silva, those were kind of like, I was like, oh, I like that. Yeah. And then, you know, I go back and jiu-jitsu, I like Kickson Gracie, and you know, there's just a bunch of different fighters and different just people in general. Yeah. I'm influenced by the problem with me for that kind of question is that I'm influenced by almost everyone, right? When people walk in here, I see people every day, they influence me all the time. I feel like there aren't any just, these are my 5 top, you know? I feel like I'm influenced by everybody every day. Yeah. I take what people offer as far as energy, and it helps me go, or it helps me not go sometimes. Sometimes people's energy is like, yeah, all right. But yeah, so influences, not a bunch, like, I mean, not a bunch of specific ones, just
culmination.
Yeah, culmination is just pieces all along the way. Muhammad Ali, like, I mean, I grew up watching Sugar Ray Leonard, like Tyson. My mom used to do like get-togethers to watch Tyson fights. You know, play and sell them for $5 a piece, that kind of thing. Like, you know, I'm influenced by just my journey along the way, and also mistakes that I've made and people I've run into and things that happen. I mean, there was a one martial arts gym in Texas that I walked into, and I just walked in to check out the class. There was class going on, and they had seats in the front, so I sat. And then the trainer came over, the sensei came over, and he's like, so what's up, when are you joining, or whatever, something like that. And I was like, I just wanted to come and see it, and before I could say anything else, he's like, all right, you come back when you're serious. I was like, So that influenced me as well. Like, I wrote a blog a few years ago, like, you know, probably 5 years worth of blogging, and that's one of the stories I tell. There's a lot of stories of things that happened to me along the way that influenced how I wanted this to be, and also my own goals and all that, which are not nearly accomplished, but
yeah.
Gotcha.
Cool.
So as far as the gym itself, it's been open for 3 years.
3 years. It's been a little bit of change.
Yeah. Because I think just before COVID was the
literally I had our 3-year anniversary on the 14th, and we were shut down on the 15th.
Oh, yeah.
I was here for that last class.
I know, he told me, he's like, I went to the very last class.
Yeah, but we're back.
Yeah.
We're back now. Thank goodness we survived. We're here. So when did you start to think about opening up your own gym? Because, you know, there's a big difference between working in a field and opening your own, because it's a big leap. So when did you start to do that, and tell us about the process of opening up and stuff like that?
Okay, so let's go again back. I said I was going to do this. I mean, when I was a kid, like it was like, this is something that was going to happen. I didn't know if it was really going to happen, but I always said it.
Yeah.
So I had a good friend that I've been training for about 4 years. Shout out to Ben London, and he came to me and was like, "Yo, you got to do this now." And I was like, "Okay, I'll do it. Let's do it." And he goes, "You need your business plan," which I basically already had. Like, I had already done this stuff a few times, you know. So I really just went back in the business plan and kind of, you know, changed some stuff. Yeah. He's a lawyer. I gave it to him. He liked it. I contacted. Here's an important thing to note when you're starting out in business. I had contacted all these wealthy friends that I have, not all, but a bunch of wealthy friends that I have, a handful, that had always been like, let me know when you're gonna do your thing. And I got you. So we were trying to raise some money. So I sent out this business plan to all of these people. I even contacted them beforehand by email or by phone. Yeah, send it over. Never heard from any of them again.
Yikes.
Literally none of them. To this day still. Pretty crazy. So that's one of the things you should note, is that don't expect that people are going to throw money your way, because they're probably not. Yeah. So I went and started preparing people for fighting. I was fighting still, and he came to me again and was like, "Yo, you got to do this. What's up?" I said, "Man, look, I sent out all the stuff. I got no responses. Everybody disappeared, and I don't have money." So he basically was like, "All right, look, I'm going to talk to a couple of friends, and then I'm going to give you this, and we're going to just call it my training for the next 4 years."
Wow.
So he basically paid me in advance. We ended up losing almost all of that at the beginning because we got into a unit that we couldn't use and paid a ton of money to get in there and all this. And it was a rough go at the beginning. But yeah, I mean, I knew I was going to do it, and I couldn't pass up that opportunity. I remember him leaving the gym that day from doing our private session for me going into teaching my classes, and in between that, just thinking to myself, am I ever going to get this opportunity again? If I say no right now to opening the gym, leaving my comfy, teaching job and kind of have sort of the run of the place and kind of do what I want a little bit, will I ever get a chance again? When is somebody going to tell me, here's so-and-so amount of money, go follow your dream?
Yeah.
It's almost never going to happen, and that was the opportunity. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Wow.
And then I had to tell my gym that I've been with for 16 years. I had to tell, clients, everybody. I was leaving, and I wasn't going to be close to them, and it was a lot. But I always said it, and I will continue to say it. It doesn't matter where you put me. I'm going to build my thing because like you said, it's something there's an aura to it. There's a method to my madness, so people will come.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then you open your doors March 2017.
Yeah.
And when you open, you've been in 3 locations?
Yes.
3, technically.
Basically. Yeah.
I know at least 2. I've been in 2. Because this is the...
Man, it's a lot, but yeah.
A couple.
Yeah.
Thank you. And since you opened up, because right now the format is there's basically group Muay Thai classes. I know you've recently sort of split them off by level a little bit.
Yeah, we actually stopped that for the moment. We're going back to that next week.
Yeah. And then you obviously do a lot of privates.
Yeah.
Has that always been the format? Were there different things you were doing early on that now is different, or has it been a similar setup?
When I first started, I had an open format. So for like the first year, it was you just show up, and every day I had a plan, sort of worked out. So if you showed up, I knew, this is what you're gonna work on today or whatever. And then once I got sort of that worked out, I set up all the classes, set to particular hours, and then people started coming to those. And then I started separating the classes, and just over time, it's evolved, and it's going to continue to do so.
Yeah. So it started out just show up.
Just show up whatever time,
and
then you can train.
Here's the training.
Yeah.
Wow, cool. And so you've been teaching martial arts for 15, 20 years, something like that.
15 years.
15, 20 years. So I think I'm personally always super interested in how people teach and how people learn. And martial arts is really unique because here there's definitely a fitness aspect to it. You come here and you get there's nothing like the conditioning you get. It's just not able to replicate it. So you do come here and get fitness, but you're also teaching people a martial art at the same time. So you're teaching technique on top of conditioning and some self-defense as well, for sure. So there's a lot of variables. So how has your teaching style developed over the years? Because I'm sure after all these years you've gotten better. Maybe you look back and
details.
Could have done it differently.
Details! I mean, I'm 100% detail oriented, way more so now. And then also, I think I talked about this the other day, but just making sure that people are using, meditation, visualization, making sure that obviously their cardio is good. But over time, what I've really learned is understanding that you have to understand concepts and details, and distance and time. All of this is time and space. Mm-hmm. So understanding where somebody's going to be when you do a specific thing. Like throw a punch, this person has this, and this that are available to them, right? Mm-hmm. And then if they choose any one of those, then I have this, based on what they do. So all of those things, little by little over time, I want you to try to get as much as you can out of that. And then when you see those things in front of you, you know what you're looking at, right? You know if you throw a jab, they're going to possibly do this, or you can do that. There's a sort of a map.
Yeah, like an algorithm, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it just grows and grows and grows and grows. And not everybody's going to be a superstar, not everybody's going to be, there's I think they talked about with a guy like say a Floyd Mayweather, which is he's been seeing the same thing so long, right? He's seen all this stuff since he was like 4 years old, right? He's seen a jab, he's seen everything that's come after a jab, and after that, and after that, and after that. So now he's already, by the time he's, now he's not fighting, but maybe 40 fights in, 30 fights in, he's already seen almost everything that you can throw at him.
Yeah.
So now he's got everything worked out for every possibility. Three punches down the road, or three engagements down the road. And I think that's really largely because of detail. It's understanding, right? Where the person is, where you are, your distance from them, how long it takes them to get to you, what angle you should be at, and so forth and so on. I can just do this forever. So.
Wow.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then the more you practice that, the more it becomes automatic and subconscious.
Yes, and then the more you can add.
And the more you can add. Yeah.
And,
Wow.
and because the more you can add, there's more than you can subtract, right? So
Yeah.
now you know more things, so you can take away the things that you don't know to get to the specific answer that you're looking for.
Yeah. That's amazing though.
And then eventually, once you have enough information and reflexes, then you can build your own game.
And that's what comes next, right? I always tell people, like, once you start learning, all your concepts, at least a good amount of them, then you have to start using these concepts in your training when you're working with other people, so you can start figuring out, oh, this works for me, oh, this doesn't.
Yeah.
But then there's also a thing that happens where you can't always just decide that a thing doesn't work. You have to work that thing specifically, like a certain kind of hook, for instance, because the first few times you try to work it, if you've never worked that before, you're more than likely going to you're going to get hit, right? Because you've never done this before. So now you have to go, oh, if I throw it like this, I'm open for this. But what if I do this first? If I sidestep first before I do it? Oh, now I'm not getting hit, right? So you make adjustments, but you can't just immediately go, oh, I got hit. I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do
I'm
that.
out on that.
Right? You have to continue to try it, right?
Do you think, this is just me, like, being a martial arts geek, but do you think that there's, like, the level, I guess, of, because I doing jiu-jitsu and training Muay Thai, I can definitely see that action-reaction spiderweb thing in jiu-jitsu. It's a little bit less apparent to me in striking just because I'm not as experienced, but is there the same, are they very similar once you get to a certain level?
Yeah,
it's very similar.
Absolutely. I think that, the concepts are, martial arts concepts across the board are basically similar, right? I always try to compare jiu-jitsu with something I'm very familiar with, that when your hands are closer, you're safer, right? Jiu-jitsu is the same. The further your hands go away from your body, the less safe you are. So it's the same thing when you're striking. If you go to jab, your lead hand is further away from your face, therefore your face is open. So it's similar to jiu-jitsu in a way that you better be doing something, not just putting your arms away from your body, right?
Yeah.
And you have to know that, oh, if I do this and then they grab that, I better know that I need to turn on this hip. And it's the same thing for jiu-jitsu, and for Muay Thai, for striking. Same thing, and the same thing for boxing. You gotta know distance, all that stuff.
Yeah, because the term you commonly hear, like, from MMA analysts and stuff is, like, certain fights look like one thing to people, and they'll say, well, it was a chess match, right? So that's that, like, level of depth,
Yeah.
like the Adesanya Anderson Silva.
Yeah, I think people, it's hard when you're a casual fan, and I don't mean that in the negative way.
Casual.
People use it now. People are so casual. But a casual fan is somebody that likes, that likes the sport, that they're into it. They may not know every fighter. They might have just gotten into it in the last, who knows, 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, when Ronda was in, people haven't
That's
been.
when people
What are we in, 2020?
2020.
I was teaching an MMA class in 05 and 06. So, I mean, like, people don't have that long, to reach back to, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I love all this stuff, so
Yeah.
I don't know. People don't understand how deep it goes. Like, how come you didn't attack this guy? You should have just ran in there. That's very casual,
Yeah.
But they don't realize that.
Man, I'm casual.
It's hard, right? You want to go hit him, kick him in the face.
He doesn't
It's
like any grappling.
You know that if he steps in, this guy's waiting to do this, and he knows it, and that guy's not going to step in because he knows he's waiting to do that. Like, It's hard to see that.
Yeah.
There's a whole other thing going on inside.
Yeah.
That's we have what's the names? We have somebody here that wants to fight, and they're like, yeah, I can do this, I can do that, and I'm like, man, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Once you're inside there, everything you thought is not the way it is.
Yeah.
Time is moving 100 miles an hour,
Yep.
and also like it is so crazy in there.
Oh my god.
So
I bet the environment in there is.
it's nuts, man.
Crazy.
You know, it's kind of crazy. Everything's moving at a weird pace, and then there's a guy there yelling at you, telling you, "Oh, break it up," or you see them circling around you. You don't hear the crowd. You hear your coach, or you don't. It's like a very there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And also that you train for 6-8 weeks or whatever to fight this person, and they train 6 or 8 weeks to fight specifically you.
Yeah.
Most of the time, right? So it's a little bit of a bizarre thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also super cool. Like I can't imagine like the level of like dedication, like the mindset that you have to go in there and do this. Like it's crazy.
I always trip out. I've never been knocked out, but I always think now when I see people get knocked out. I tell people this all the time. I see people get knocked out now, and I'm always like, oh my god, what was I thinking? That could have been me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always, every time I see somebody get knocked out, I'm like, oh geez, what the heck was I thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you even see that, or I've even felt that, like the transition from, like, you could hit pads and this and that, and even just sparring, even if it's lights, when you first spar, you freeze up a little bit, you know? And I'm even guilty of that as well. You just kind of freeze up when the other person's trying to hit you.
Yeah.
And even if you trust the other
You're like,
person,
wait,
even if I'm
wait.
sparring you, I just kind of freeze up.
It's
I know
a
you're
lot
not going
going
to
on.
hurt me,
Yeah.
but I'm still, so
Yeah.
there's so many, there's definitely, and I can only imagine the next level, which is you're in a ring, you're in a cage, the other
now
guy's
you're
trying to hurt you.
Yeah, you're right. And I say that too. That's another interesting thing is that I tell people all the time, somebody can hit you in the gym and sparring with the same amount of force that somebody hits you with in a ring that you're fighting for real.
Mm-hmm.
But when they hit you in the ring, it feels different because there's a sort of a bad intention energy to it.
Yeah.
So even if they throw something and clip you at 70%, you got hit in the gym by somebody at 70%, they just feel differently because that person is trying to hurt you, right? So it just feels different. It's kind of a weird thing. Because you get clocked in the gym, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
That same energy that somebody clocks you with in the ring, you're like,
This person's actually trying to hurt me.
damn, like it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Dang,
Wow.
that's crazy. So, let's go back to the gym here because this is such a cool, unique place. I just want people to get an understanding for what goes on here.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yay! So there's really there's sort of like two different like groups of people that train here. There's like a lot of just people that like Muay Thai, they want to get in shape, they want to learn Muay Thai, and then there are people who choose to compete in Muay Thai as well. So how do you go about, I know you've recently started splitting up the classes, but how do you sort of juggle working with athletes with competitive aspirations, and then a bunch of folks like myself who loves martial arts and wants to come in here and train, but doesn't necessarily want to get into the ring anytime soon?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I think the answer
Soon.
he's been telling me. I think the basic ideas are all the same, right? So if you're a beginner or if you're advanced, you still have to do all of the techniques properly, right? So I'm going to push the advanced person a little harder, obviously. I'm going to expect for them to know more of the spiderwebby stuff, right? We should be able to get to a point where I can even do pads, we can do pads, and I'm not even calling anything. But you know by the way I'm moving that you need to be throwing this or prepare for that or moving your own way like this. Like there's something that happens along the way, and then I just push when it's time to push, And everybody's different. Some of the people I have to be more a little softer with at times, and then other people I have to be on their backs, right? But ultimately the techniques are the same. It's just a matter of how well do you know them? Do you understand that they are way more valuable when you're fighting? Like if I'm holding pads for you and you're not a fighter, and you're doing your punches, and I go to give you a whack or give you a kick in the leg and you don't block it, and on the 10th time you're still not blocking it, well, I'm not kicking you very hard. I'm just kind of raising my leg to get you to kind of try to see if you'll block. Which you don't know the value of the block yet because you haven't been kicked hard yet. But as you're advanced, I'm going to give you a little bit something hot on your leg.
Yeah.
So if you don't block it, then you are immediately you go into your, okay, now I'm playing defense. I know what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's.
You're conditioning the person.
I'm telling you, when you're new, I'm not going to kick you so hard, but also at some point you're going to, if you don't learn the techniques, you're going to have to learn the value of them at some point. I'm going to have to kick you hard at least once. So you go, oh, that's why you keep saying block?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to block now. Yeah.
Okay,
But you still won't.
Yeah.
Right? You still won't. But
You kind of eventually you got to let the person's instincts kick in because your body, you don't want to get kicked twice in the same spot in the leg.
Right.
So your body's going to do stuff that might be sort of subconscious.
So I think my idea is to always teach them first. Like this is the way you should do it. This is the way you should do it. This is the way you should do it.
Yeah.
Then I give them a little something to make them think about it, and then somewhere along the way, either they get it or they don't get it, and the thing that they have to think about gets a little harder, maybe stings a little more or whatever, and they go, oh, okay, now I got it, right?
Yeah.
And it's not always super hard or anything. If I'm holding just boxing mitts, and you throw punches and constantly put your hands down, and I say keep your hands up. Put your hands down. I say keep your hands up.
Yeah.
Put your hands down. I give you a little whack. You go, oh, I didn't have my hands up. Like, yeah,
I mean,
you know,
I
like,
tell you, but
yeah. But then you can't.
Oh,
but then, if, by that same token, that person cannot fight for me, right?
Yeah.
Until they know, like, okay, oh, there's a punch. Oh, I gotta move this out of the way. I gotta block this. I gotta move my feet this. When they can do all that, then I'm like, all right,
we can talk.
We can talk about it.
Yeah. It was that complex, guys. I'm new at this. Like I didn't know.
This is
wow.
science. This is all
Science, art,
It is. It really is.
It's incredible.
For me, I really pride myself in like the smallest little things. So like,
I had no idea about the depths of understanding that go into the sport. Like, wow. All right, I'm gonna try not to be casual about it anymore.
I mean, there's a lot of them around. So
Yeah.
more casuals than anything.
That's what's growing the sport.
Yeah.
So we should be thankful for the casuals. You get more fighters that way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's more people that just casually watch the sport than people that are participating in that kind of stuff. I mean, you could sell so many pay-per-views. It was all hardcore, super hardcore. I think most people were like, like go see a football game or go see a baseball game, go watch a fight. Like these are just fans that want to see something exciting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that around these days. I mean, obviously things are coming back slowly, but there's a lot of organizations. There's a lot of different fighters. Boxing's having a good upturn. MMA is having a good upturn. I think kickboxing's lacking. Muay Thai's lacking a little bit, but
You'll get there.
that's how it is in the U.S. anyway.
Yeah. And I think it is cool that MMA is like jiu-jitsu, for example, is a sport that I don't think many people that don't do jiu-jitsu watch jiu-jitsu.
I agree.
I don't believe so. I think that's what they're trying. That's where they're trying to go. But I think that MMA is there. There's plenty of people that watch MMA that maybe don't even train as a hobby.
Oh, for sure.
They just enjoy the sport. But I can tell you from me who trains jiu-jitsu and Muay, it is so much more enjoyable when you have a little bit of context from your own training.
I agree.
Like exponentially more enjoyable.
Way more enjoyable.
I mean, I can watch No Name versus No Name. They're both professional fighters, and I can watch and be blown away by their performance. Whereas, if you don't do martial arts, then certain fights or certain exchanges don't look, it looks like.
Well, I think also it's odd because people were into punching each other and that kind of, not into it, but let's just say that it's easy for a casual fan to get into that because that's something they can relate to. They got in a fight with their cousin. They fought with their neighbors growing up. They fought with their brother or their sister or their right. So I think that's an easy thing. But when it comes to grappling, there are a couple of things people automatically know from their youth. They know like a headlock, right? And they know a basic choke. But anything beyond that, when you see somebody going for legs or transitioning to the back or transitioning to side control or knee on belly or they're like, what's going on? They see somebody grabbing them around the head and arm. They don't realize there's a head and arm choke coming, and they're just going, why is he grabbing them around the head? It doesn't translate as well as a fist to the face does. That's something people have seen their whole lives. I always talk about when it comes to fighting as well. The women I train tend to do better because men have a preconceived notion about how to fight. We fought, generally speaking, women haven't had as many physical confrontations as men, right? We fought with our cousins, our brothers, our uncles, fighting in the street, fighting in the, playground, fighting in the in the schoolroom. The women come, so guys, when I train them, they automatically know how to, oh, you know how to fight? Yeah, I know how to fight in the street. Or, you know how to throw a punch? Yeah, I know how to throw a punch. And they throw a punch and they throw wild stuff, right? Yeah. Women will tell me immediately that they don't really have an idea. So when I start them off with a jab or a jab cross or all that stuff and how do you stand it, they literally starting from zero and they don't have the ego. I've yet to really see this an ego where they're like, I already know what I'm doing. Most of the time they're like, and then they end up being better with the techniques and all that stuff, much more pleasant to look at. I always talk about, you've seen me probably say this stuff where I'm in the gym, people are sparring, and I'm like, I hurt my eyes. Hey, for real, please. But a lot of the women, when they're sparring and stuff, you're just like, oh, man, it looks good. Because they're not trying to overpower anything. They're not using anything from when they were 7. They can use
I grew up in a house full of girls. Like, no, I mean, I have 3 older sisters, a girl, single mom, like.
Yeah, guys
did roughhouse.
Right, guys think that guys automatically think they know it already.
Yeah.
So when they come in, I have to change, this thing into a straight punch, and that takes months. It's a lot.
Yeah. And it's I think because of the way sparring is in jiu-jitsu, where you sort of like spar kind of right off the bat for the most part. Not so much in Muay Thai. You kind of take your time before you spar. So it's not necessarily as blatantly humbling in your face as much as jiu-jitsu is, right? Even though you probably suck just as much at Muay Thai as you did at jiu-jitsu,
right?
But it's not as obvious because you're not getting strangled.
Right? Yeah. Jiu-jitsu, you're gonna get strangled right away, away.
And like your instincts are just not gonna save you.
No,
like they're just, especially in a gi.
No.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's not. People are. It's funny because they're like, you're just gonna roll around a little bit. I've seen it so many times where a new person starts out and they're like, yeah, just go with this person. They put them with a purple belt or a blue belt, just relax. And then and the blue belt and the purple belt's just kind of hanging out. Another person's like, hold it down, and then I don't know what I'm doing. No, it's okay, just try.
All the time.
It's crazy, man. And then
he always talks about how he was like that, like in the beginning. You're just like, I was trying to.
I think everybody.
I was spazzing out in the beginning.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. And then they get choked and they go, I thought I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
But.
And that happens again
and again.
And eventually, at some point, you become the applier.
Right out of the choke. And you're like, I choked somebody.
There's a bigger fish who bullies you again.
Yeah, and then you realize, I'm not even.
And then like 15 years later, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
That's kind of how
this is
it goes.
true. This is very true.
It's just nonstop. Are we good on battery? I saw your warning come on.
We're probably.
Just check it. I just don't want to lose the video.
Well, it was at 20%, so we should probably wrap up pretty soon.
Okay, so I always ask every guest that we interview. I'm like a super reader. I love reading books. So give us a book that you recommend that you really like.
Oh my God. All right. I would say, oh God, there's so many. But I would pass these books out. So, the Book of 5 Rings. By Musashi, I pass that out. A lot of times people fight, I give them something, right? And The Art of War. So those 2 books, 100%, you should go and read.
The 5 Rings?
The Book of 5 Rings.
The Book of 5 Rings and The Art of War. Okay, there you go. Those are Lucky's books.
Yeah, Sun Tzu and Musashi.
And I did want to just sneak this question because it's important for people watching. Why, so let's say you're a busy professional, you only have 2 or 3 hours a week to work out. Why should you come do Muay Thai?
First of all, because you only have 2 or 3 hours a week to work out, and you can't live that life and be healthy, right, without doing something. So I wouldn't necessarily just recommend come do Muay Thai. Come do Muay Thai because you want to get a nice little, you get to punch things and kick things. You get to learn the technique. You get to be a part of something bigger than just your everyday 9 to 5. And you get to have a release, right? Somewhere to put that energy that might be built up from your stress. But I will also add that you should do that with whatever it is that makes you have that release. So it doesn't have to be Muay Thai. It could be boxing, soccer, basketball. Just get up off your butt, like 9 to 5s, especially if you're sitting down all day. Please get up and move. Like please please, 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 do us all a favor.
Do it for Lucky.
Right? No, do us all a favor. That, you know, it's that whole weak asleep thing.
Yeah,
If there's people out there that are not being healthier because they don't have the information, or not being healthy because they are not in places where they can, you know, maybe pay for gyms, or whatever the situation is, whatever you can do, get out to a park and run, go walk. Your health is our health, right? We're all connected in this. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. We already know the name of your gym, Lucky's Muay Thai. Tell us where you're at. Tell us how they can reach you. Tell us about your podcast. Whatever else you want.
You can reach me at Lucky's Muay Thai, at Lucky's Muay Thai on Instagram, at Lucky's Muay Thai on Twitter. You can go to YouTube and look up Lucky's Muay Thai, and there you can find a bunch of techniques, as well as the BCMA podcast, which is my podcast, Black Belt Martial Arts podcast. And where else can you find me? I don't know, all over the place. Just Google Lucky's or Lucky's Muay Thai. I'm quite honest everywhere. So.
Awesome.
And do you allow like first time like drop-in?
I will allow. Right now, we're kind of doing a really limited thing, so we have only 6 people per class, at least for the moment. So normally we do like a free class, but please email us for that at Lucky'sMTMiami Lucky'sMTMiami at Gmail, and that way we can sort of talk with you and try to get you in here, you know, at a time that fits us both.
Yeah, so if you're interested in coming and checking out Lucky's Muay Thai, I highly recommend it. I train here myself. If you're interested, reach out to him. He'll let you come in for a free class, and you can see what all this madness we're talking about is all about.
Yeah, and get up off your butts and do something.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Oh my God, y'all can't let me run my mouth like that.
No, you're so good.
People have been letting me talk for too much over the last week.